I just talked to a guy, 30 years in the business, and he did 10 deals last year total. And I think like seven were from like random referrals, right? So he just like happenstance gets referrals. Super smart guy. He's owned other businesses. He's lived in his community for 30 years, and he has not built a database. And when I asked him about database, he sort of said, well, my brokerage has a CRM and he legit told me that I'm like, how many people know, like, and trust you? Like, if you pass them in a supermarket, they'd be like, Dave, you helped us, or I know you from your kid's sports or whatever, right? People that actually know you, think you're a good guy or girl. And he said 1,000, and I said 1,000. He said at least 500. Like I've owned, a construction business, a mortgage, but like he's just a business guy, but he never slowed down to do the way you describe it, like the least sexy work there could be that is just massively, massively profitable. And so we're going to break it up into three phases, and we're just going to really go deep on it. It's build it is number one, then feed it, which is just the habit of actually feeding it on a regular basis. And then the fun part where you become a marketer and you can introduce personality is the communicate with it. The build it part, I could argue that you could probably do it once a year. Focus once a year for a month, like just choose January or December every year. That's your build it month, and then you're feeding it on the regular and then you're building it once a year. So anyway, that's the intro. If you're at the point in your journey where this stuff needs to work and you've been in business for 27 years and you haven't done it and you have some money in the bank, you want to book in a call with John after this call, and Dave will kind of cover that. This training here, we have that core training. You can run with it. Dave is going to teach you how to run with all this stuff. That's the setup. I'll take myself off spotlight and you can roll with it.
Thanks, Lars. Yeah, just as mentioned, we've done the 60 touch blueprint. That's the core training. And then we talked about how to develop content when you communicate with your database. So that was the second training. And then the third was unique selling propositions and calls to action. So make sure you watch all those. I was a little bit afraid to do this training because it's so unsexy and it's so boring and so basic that I almost want to skip it. And yet it is the thing that we just don't do, and yet is the highest return on energy, highest return on investment that we can really do in our business. And if you could just do it like next week, block some time and do this one activity, it'll stay with your business for your whole career. And just like my business, it still generates half of our transactions for us. So 350 transactions, half of them, 170, 180 are just from 10 years ago, when I blocked some time to do what we're going to talk about today.
Because your database at one point started at zero.
I didn't have anybody in it, not one name. And then we did this exercise that I'm going to show you today, this boring exercise. It takes 4 to 6 hours of your time. That once you do it.
In the document, you have 12 hours.
Well, we could do a little faster with technology now.
You're using AI.
That's right. There's some efficiencies. But in all seriousness, I actually slowed down. And because this is such an important step, I built some new slides for this. This is the original slide deck for our core training. And it says how to run a 60 touch program, build, feed, and communicate. So I took the build it, which originally was just, this slide. And I really wanted to break it down for you guys and slow down and say, all right, next week, if you could time block, 6 to 8 hours, 10 hours, like Lars said, if you're a little slower, 12 hours, and do these 6 things. I'm going to take you through each one and just show you how simple yet important it is. So step 1 is just put the blocks in your calendars. All right. You could do that right now if you're watching this. Start with 2 to 3 hour time blocks. That should get you more than halfway there. And then just grab a spreadsheet. And it's not fancy, you guys. When we have agents come into our businesses, it's like, let's just get an Excel or a Google sheet and let's get a couple fields on there that are important. First, last name, email address, phone number, mailing address, city, state, zip code. All right. So we always want to have name, email, phone number, and then mailing address if we're going to communicate with our database. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use 4 places to highlight names that know, like, and trust us. And this is the exercise that I went through, and we take every agent, who joins our team and our business through, just to get to a minimum of about 250 names. And so the first thing we're going to do is go to Exhibit A, and you guys have a copy of this. John will drop this in the chat right now for you. Lars has a copy of it, and you can see these questions are going to get you to a couple hundred. Who's your dentist? Who's your children's dentist if it's not the same one? Who cuts your grass? Who's your trainer? Who is your fraternity or sorority brothers and sisters? Former teachers, coaches, your children's, your friends, parents, auto repair, extended family members, who attended your wedding, who are your spouse's coworkers, right? Some of these have, like, you might list, 15 people to one of these questions, right? Who attended your wedding? Well, I had 110 people at my wedding. So surely those people, if they had life change, I want them to think about me to come and do a listing appointment with them. So I'm going to make sure to write their names down on this list. And so then once we get that group, we're just going to go into Facebook or LinkedIn or a couple of our socials, and we're going to look at our connections.
Real quick, Dave, the mindset that I would have doing this, like, not so fun work, like this is the working out and eating well part of getting in shape, is that for every do the math on it. For every 10 names that you acquire, full contact information, and you put them through the touch system that we're going to describe, what percentage turn into a closing?
Yeah, so for every 10 people in your touch system, you're going to get 1 closing, either by direct closing or referrals. If he ran that touch program for a year, the way that we advise you run it, in the second year, he should be generating 40 or 50 closings from those 500 individuals. And that's how it works on our team as well. Research has shown, and in my experience, this is true, to develop know, like, and trust with a human being if you don't know them at all. So from cold contact, door knocking, open house, to get them to the point where you've nurtured them, you've communicated with them, you've done what you say you're going to do, it's 4 to 5 hours. And so think about it that way. To get 250 people to know, like, and trust you if you're buying leads or you're going to open houses or you're going door knocking, that's going to take you 1,250 hours of your time, which is the mistake I made in the first 3 years of my business. I went door knocking for 3 years to develop a list of 250 people. And I had to spend all that time with them, 1,250 hours. And in an hourly rate of like 80 some dollars an hour, it's over $100,000 of time that all of these agents in the business, people on this call, are spending in their first few years. That guy that you met with the construction company, spending $100,000 of their time to try and acquire new business from cold to now they know, like, and trust me, and they'll refer me, when in fact, all of these people already exist in your world that you've already spent 1,250 hours getting them to know, like, and trust. So yeah, that's the mindset. It's just, there couldn't be a better investment. So you're going to go through Exhibit A, you're going to go through your socials, and then just pull up your phone, hit your contacts. And this example has 1,579 contacts. Surely there's 100 or 200 of 1,500 that know, like, and trust you in your contact list, right? And then often we miss all the people that we're emailing, like in this world where often we've been emailing the same person about something, some ongoing conversation for 3 years, and we don't talk to them much, but they're in our email. And so just typing in the letter A to your email and going through and just looking at all the names and determining, do I have a relationship with this person, right? Through these 4 or 5 sources, we can document on our spreadsheet here at least 200-300 names of people that we've acquired their trust, right? And so that's the basis. So then the next step is filling in the gaps. So we're going to go back through just basic research, going to the public record, going back into our phone, going into email, and researching any missing contact information for those 250 people that are in our spreadsheet. We're going to fill in those gaps. So many databases I see, they just have an email address. the person hasn't taken the time to get their direct mail address, or they just have a phone number and they've never been emailed, right? So we just want to go back and do that work. And then after we do that work, we're going to go, and I built just a version of a text that we've used in the past, right? So TCPA, you want to be TCPA compliant when you're contacting anybody. And if, a really good way to market to your database or anybody is just to ask for permission first instead of just starting to send them information. And so, putting together a text, hey, Lars, do you have a second? Right? So Lars is in my know, like, and trust list. Do you have a second? Sure. And then some version of this dialogue. I just talked to a mentor at my office. I think I could do a better job for people. This guy blew my mind. Instead of just working for people when they're going to pay a commission, he sends like 200 of his closest people a few things each month that actually help them while living in their home, regardless whether they're staying there or moving. I made that list and you happen to be on it. I want to do what he does. Nothing you need to do or pay for. If it's not valuable, I can take you off at any time. Is it okay to include you? Right? So just a permission-based marketing. There's nothing fancy about this in contacting your database. You can also do a version of this and just call them. I call it the apology dialogue. So we've gotten really good at, hey, Lars, do you have a second? Sure. Hey, this is a business call. I have to apologize. I've been doing real estate. I just got out of a conference and heard from this mentor who actually works for people even when they're not buying or selling, and he's not collecting commission in their home ownership experience, like between transactions. And I feel like all the people I care about, I haven't done that for at all. I'm like there when you're ready to pay me, but I'm not there when you're in your home. And he just sends them valuable information, has client appreciation events, stuff that's relevant to them. And I just want to do a better job for my people. Is it okay if I put you on that list? Right? Very few people say no to that. It's a very easy call. It's all value. When you get that opt-in, then you start to, all those people that opt in, you communicate with them. We'll talk about that in a second. So Lars, there is nothing fancy about that. Once we get the opt-in, we're going to tag them in the CRM. Right? So we're going to take the people that we put in this sheet using these resources, filling in the gaps, contacting them with permission, and then they're added to the CRM and they have a tag down here. We call it inner circle. You could call it your 60 touch, whatever that is for you. And that's it. So time block it, prepare the sheet, gather your Mets, research their info, connect with them and apologize. They get the permission to opt in, and then tag them in your CRM. And then we can talk about feed it, which I think you have a couple thoughts on, Lars, and then also communicate with it.
Yeah, let's see what questions there are on this. So you can unshare your slides for a second, the non-sexy conversation about okay, you don't have a database, no touch system, how many closings do you think you've done in the last 5 years, your sphere, and he's like 250 to 300. And it's almost like agents, they want to believe it's more complicated, or they still go to the paid lead and I liken it to, we work in an industry where agents want, they want to eat McDonald's, drink milkshakes, and go to rock concerts and stay out late. But the stuff that actually works, and the way you teach it and the way Real Estate B School teaches it, is it's the working out and eating healthy and having some accountability to do the things you don't want to do. If you knew that this could be $1 million annual income pillar for you in 10 years and you didn't do anything with it now, why wouldn't you get to work now? What do you think the psychology is there?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, it's a couple things, right? Number one, we are sold magic pills. Like everywhere we go, you get a headache. I suffered from chronic migraine. You know that story. It's easy to take a pill, not change your diet. I ended up having to change my diet. I have to weigh my food, and my migraine is totally under control. In a world and in a culture where everything is a quick fix, everything is a quick sale, it's an easy button. We like shiny objects. We have a lot of inability to focus. And so when we're walking down the path toward our goals and the squirrel jumps out, we chase the squirrel, right? That's the old analogy. And I think that's a big part of it is just quick fix, magic pills, shiny object syndrome, right? The other thing I think for some agents who are, so that would be the newer agent, there's just attractive things that look like quick fixes. And the other thing is, I think for agents that are a little bit more seasoned, we're addicted to the urgent. We always say, like, you have important, but not urgent. And then you have urgent, but not important. And oftentimes, things that fill our text inbox, voicemail inbox, our private message inbox, and our socials feel really important, but really they're just urgent. They're not actually giving us a return on the investment of our time. But it feels like a dopamine hit if we can tackle that item on our to-do list and get back to that person. It's like out of our world. And I think sometimes just prioritizing, okay, I'm going to time block 3 hours on Friday morning to do the important but not urgent work. And I'm going to turn my devices off and I'm not going to get distracted. And if I just do that once a week, I can still be sold out to the urgent garbage that sucks up my time for the rest of the week. And I still have blocked 3 hours to do the important work. Those are the two things that come to mind.
I don't love Gary V for a lot of his hustle, grind it out type mentality, but one thing he said, and I think this was from the book Thank You Economy, maybe, where he said, unless you're the business that has the billions to pursue the bleeding edge of something, and especially for local service businesses, if you can't do that, we think we can latch onto something that is claiming to do a thing, AI, whatever. If you can't do that, you need to operate your local business like it was in the 1950s,
Mm.
where it's like high touch, high relationship, and you're just building these 250 are going to expand to 500, are going to expand to 1,000, and you're just building a relationship, a wide and deep relationship moat around this group of people in a true, like in a meaningful way. And it's not the way that I'm necessarily wired. My business evolved to this over time. My earlier days of real estate, I didn't even start my database for the first 3 years. But once I realized that it's systematic and, basically the communicate part is what I was really attracted to. But I thought that was really cool is like, if you think about, I mean, I never operated a business in the 1950s, but it had no tech whatsoever. You slowed down and had conversations with people, and so this is just doing that, but you're doing it on a one to many, but it's still personal.
The other thing too is that comes to mind is, like, if I go to a conference or if I see somebody platformed on a podcast, they're probably operating some big business. They have a huge budget and they're sort of playing the game that you said Gary Vee is playing, where they have a ton of leverage, they have, high expense column, and they're trying to outbeat the noise in a noisy world with a ton of impressions through social media and all this kind of stuff. And yet, while that seems attractive because you're hearing it from some guru, really what you're referring to is, like, if you're in a community starting at 0, 10, 50, even 100 transactions, you're running a boutique business in your community. And you don't necessarily have the 20 employees who are going to run the cutting edge digital marketing system on 7 social media channels and outbeat and out hustle the noise that those organizations have. And so your only other alternative, that is an impenetrable alternative, by the way, is to go through the list that I just showed you in Exhibit A and write down the names of the people that you, not them, have put the 5 hours per person in, and they already trust you. And, if you did that list, like anybody on this call, Amy Friedman, I just see her in the chat, anybody on this call, put together that list, I could go into your market and spend 30 grand a month. And I don't have any influence over your 200 people that you already know, like, and trust. No matter how much money I spend, I can't influence Amy's know, like, and trust list because she's already put the work in and talked to them and they trust her. And now she's just following up with valuable content, client appreciation events, touching in with them on their home ownership experience. So once you do that, you've built a boutique moat that is impenetrable around your business that lead aggregators, Zillow, big businesses with lots of noise, they can't take from you. And so I think it's just worth doubling down on some of those concepts.
All right, if you're in MDAM, you're on this call. We've got an implementation dashboard that tracks some of this stuff on the daily. And one of the most important metrics after you build it is feeding it on the regular. Like you should get to the point on your database where you know exactly how many people are in your know, like, trust, the inner circle, as Dave calls it. And then you're just looking to add to it on a regular basis. And whatever you commit to, ours is one per day, Monday through Friday. Inside, like we have a structured 90-day process. So that's a little bit more aggressive than what yours is. But whatever it is, just I'll let you explain it, Dave, but you got to commit to it.
Yeah, and as Laura said, it's just you're setting a goal, and this is all about time management. It's all about designating an hour a month or a half hour a week in your calendar. It's an appointment with yourself that doesn't get broken. It's like you're attending a wedding, your phone goes off. This is the important but not our urgent work. And it's the appointment can be called contact management or additions to database, right? And when you get to that appointment, say it's 9 o'clock on a Friday, 9 to 9:30, you know, you're just looking at the notes of the event, and it says in it, update past clients to closed and add X amount of new contacts. And I don't know if this is appropriate, Lars, but I just sometimes feel like people need to see, like, my calendar's a lot different now than it used to be, but like if I just go into here and I'm like contact management, and then right here I'm like just add 5 new contacts to Mets database, right? And then that's saved. And actually I would just put that like on a reoccurring appointment, repeats weekly or monthly, whatever. And then when I get there, I'm just going to do that work and I'm going to add 5 people. Or I can look in my phone whenever I'm at that appointment and see who texted, called me, or look at my email. And all these new people have come into my world since the last time. I don't know if that's helpful, Lars, but it's really just a basic monthly reoccurring time block where we're looking back in the same sources, our socials, our email, our phone, our calendar, and then adding some new people to that database. And we're doing that forever. That's a nonstop appointment that forces us to grow our database. And I always say to people, like, if you never want to stop growing your real estate business, you always want to give yourself a raise, just add 50 people to your database every year, which is like 1 a week, right? That would be super easy. And that's 5 additional home sales the following year. Imagine if you did that for 10 years, that's 50 additional home sales on year 10.
And the fact that it's just not, instantaneous, like I can't, these pay 40% at closing models they feel good, because I can get a closing in 40 days. Like if I just pay you 40% of $10,000. So if I pay you $4,000, I'll get 6.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds awesome. But this model, it's a long game. Even if you build it alongside anything else you're doing, this may cost 500. If you really, really stretch it, it may cost $500 for a closing that comes out of this pillar. So do you want a business ultimately that produces $9,500 of gross margin, or do you want a business that produces only 6,000? Because that compounds. If you're doing 20 deals per year and they're all on someone else's, 20 times 4,000 is $80,000 you're going to be paying per year. In 10 years, you lose $1 million in net worth, right?
And not only that, Lars, the other thing about it is that half of my business is tied to this lead source, so 175 closings. So even if every other lead source, we pay for some leads now that we're a mature business, but we're totally subject to their pricing, and if they get into brokerage or they change their pricing, it totally wrecks our business. We used to have too much of our business was hooked up to realtor.com leads like 4 or 5 years ago. And they changed their pricing model in our market, and we had a negative return on that business. And so we had to just shut it down. And so it's just, as you grow, it becomes unhealthy to have too much of your business made up by some of these other lead sources that are dependent on another company and their shareholders trying to make a profit.
Yeah, and then just having, like, to your point, having integrity with this appointment. So having like ultimate integrity with the first set of calendar time blocks around build it, and then having integrity with the recurring time block on the weekly. I kind of like the weekly. We track it daily in Million Dollar Agent Method, but I almost like weekly. You know, your job during a calendar week is to meet five new people. And they could be a for sale by owner that you start to
Hmm.
nurture a relationship with. They
An
could
open
be,
house.
yeah, it could be an open house, but it's five people every week. Times 50 weeks, that's 250 new people. I find it hard to believe if you're wired to be in the real estate business that you couldn't meet five people a week. If you fail, you're going to hit two, and that's 100. And if you really
Hmm.
fail, it's one a week, which is 50, right? Over 5 years, 50 is 250, which is 25 more closings, which will change your life. So let's go to communicate. And this is where I think things get fun. And we can, even in the chat, if you have some things that you do that people really respond to, but go through the core system, what everyone can do. In the outro here, we'll talk about rooted.
Yeah, I'll go through two systems. You can choose which one. This first one requires a little bit more of a budget, right? If you're going to spend some money on it, this is what our team does. We pay Rooted Business Consulting, John was referenced earlier, to run this for our team. We do 12 direct mail pieces, 6 postcards, 6 newsletters, 4 sort of bulk mail items that have like a little gift inside, 3 emails a month, so 36 emails. And they're 3 very different emails. One's a listing email that they can open up and peruse our listings. One's a video, and one's an all text with like a little free download in it. And then 4 client events that really give us a reason to call and text our database personally, right? And if you add all these touches up, you'll get to 60 touches. So just some examples, what our newsletter actually looks like, what our postcard with a handwritten note actually looks like. Everything always has a little call to action at the bottom of it. The 3 emails a month, the listing one, the video that we send them, usually answering a question about the real estate process. And then the text email with a free download. This one has a seller's guide in it. The items of value, the little bulk mail items with a gift. So like a market prospectus, a referral directory, a little calendar, a notepad, and then some customer appreciation events that we do. So a giveaway, Independence Day giveaway, a client appreciation fall blast with food trucks and some live music, the pumpkin pie giveaway. These are just a reason to connect personally with our database. It's not as much about the attendance to the event as it is about calling and making sure they hear our voice, as the lead up. And then just a couple different dialogues that we use, but that's essentially how we communicate with our database. There's another system that we coach and teach that's for somebody who's just getting started and doesn't want to do the print media as much and just wants some different ideas that don't cost them any money. So Lars, I'll just touch on that one. And you guys are welcome to have this. Some of you have it already, but this is a 26-page manual, essentially, that goes through how you can implement what we taught today, that goes through everything we talked about today. And then here's another way to communicate with your database that's different from what I just told you our team does. This is a 36-touch plan that has 52, one a week, social media posts with relevant content, a video email directly from you through using BombBomb or Loom or a video service, 4 phone calls, 4 pop-bys, and 4 handwritten notes. So this is a really easy, low budget system to use, especially if you have a database that's between 200 and 500 people. This is a great place to start. And it just goes through like, okay, here's how we're going to do the social media posts, right? Here's where we're going to get our content over at Keeping Current Matters. Here's some of the questions we're going to answer on our direct mail or our video emails. Again, getting some content from Keeping Current Matters. Here's how we're going to do the phone calls. TCPA compliant phone calls right through our CRMs, and the dialogues are all in here. And then these were my favorites. I did these pop-bys, you guys, for years. And a secret I want to teach you about the database that I learned is the 80-20 rule. If you have 500 people in your database, 20%, sometimes even 10%, 40 or 50 of them would be 10%, are going to refer you 80% or 90% of your business. And so that doesn't mean you don't love on all of them, but it means there are a small percentage. There might only be even as small as 10, 15, 20 people that deserve to see your face every once in a while. And so doing a pop by to their home and just shooting them a text, hey, I dropped something off. I was in the neighborhood thinking about you, is gold, you guys. It is gold. And so when I first started, these are the activities that were in my calendar. And it goes through different things that you can pop by. So instead of doing the pumpkin pie giveaway at our office, I just went to the bakery and picked up 30 or 40 pies and dropped them off to that subset of my database that are just high referral sources, like influencers in the community. So there's a bunch of ideas there. And then the handwritten notes. Just do handwrite, thinking of you notes each morning before you do anything else. If you just have to write 3 cards in the morning, it'll only take 10 minutes a day, right? And go through every quarter, hit your whole database with a handwritten note. Not complicated, not sexy, but consistent, right? And this will continue to cement those high trust relationships. So that's communicate with it. 2 systems, the one my team does that John oversees, and then this other option if you're just now building your database.
And real quick, the fun part about this piece right here is that, Dave says like the Popeyes were the fun part. When, I learned that from Buffini at Remax 100. I'm like, I'm never popping by, never going to do it. I don't necessarily, like, I'm introverted, like, nope. My team would make me do the pies in my neighborhood. They're like, can you just do these 5? They're in your neighborhood. I'll be like, okay, can I bring my kid? So at least we'll have something like to talk about my cute kid. They're like, yeah, bring your kid. So this is where it is custom to you, right? So for me, I'm a numbers person. I could do market updates. I can do a Friday market update or a monthly market update, and that can be a pillar, and build on that pillar and really do a good job of making sure your whole database knows what's going on in the market. Or local business interviews, like if you're in a local market and you're trying to, and that feeds into the ambassador program too. We won't have time to get into that, but there's all these different things you can do, and they don't all have to all be real estate related. So another book by Gary Vee's Jab, 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 Right Hook, where the jabs are the non-real estate related stuff, and then the right hook is like a seller guide, like obviously real estate related. But you can look for something that inspired you. Like, man, I saw this, this 6-minute YouTube, and it really, I was having a challenge with something, and I just thought I'd send it out, and you may enjoy it too. So you could do personal development or mindset, or, so you could really go any direction with this stuff. But as long as your database knows that you're thinking about them, that you care, and they're getting a glimpse into who you are and how you roll. The one thing you said there, agents want to believe that their contacts are in their CRM, and their CRM is sending out some generic email that does nothing. And they're like, I do it once a month. So yeah, my database is fine. Let's move on to the next thing. Social media. Yeah, social media. I do this thing that it's $50 a month and it auto posts, and like, check, let's move to the next thing. I do it. I'm like, are you generating any business from your database? Are you generating any business from social media? And the answer is no. Some auto-generated AI, like we have 10,000 agents on this platform, and it produces like content like clockwork that it does not produce. It doesn't add any value. They know it's generic. So just be careful of what you're sending out, and just spend the time. Like, even if you're inspired by AI, spend the time to actually build it to your brand authentically, build authority with authenticity. Don't send out canned stuff.
And Lars, you said it, and it makes total sense. The system that you should use is the system that you're going to use. I know, like, a lot of people, they don't want to do Popeyes. Well, just drop it and text, drop it and run. And then from your car, you're, hey, I just popped by, dropped something off. You don't have to talk to them, but they know that you took that step and that you're loving on them. The goal with our database is that when they see you, in the grocery store in the community. And I don't want to say it this way, but this is the way it came across. They would almost apologize to me because they'd be like, man, I wish I could send you some referrals. You guys do so much for our family. It was that, like, when I'm calling them, inviting them to a client event, it's like, I don't even have to ask for the referral. It's like, oh man, I knew you were going to call because you always do. And I wish I could think of somebody that was buying. I promise I'll think about it. And that's the quality of relationship and content that you're sending to your database to the point they want to refer you.
Yeah, and to your point, the 80/20, I'll ask someone who's struggling in their business, Dave, do you think it's possible that there are 50 people in your local market that know you, like you, and trust you that would deliver a closing if you just treated them a certain way without going
Mm-hmm.
crazy and spending a bunch of money? But is it possible that there are 50 closings there and 100% of the time they'll say yes,
Mm-hmm.
but they sold 7 homes last year?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yep.
like, so the first thing we work on is this database touch blueprint. And that's
Yeah.
exactly where, we may not know who those 50 people are. We probably have to build a list of 250 over time, but there are 50 closings just sitting there for you.
Yeah.
We just have to
Yeah.
identify them.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So, all right, cool. So we're out of time. Guys, if you know you need help and you're just not an implementer and you've got a little bit of implementation money, yeah, scan the sexy little, that's the sexiest thing you talked about today, Dave, is that squirrely little QR code.
That's right.
Or go to
Yeah.
rootedbc.com. And it's just what is it, John, a 30-minute strategy session. You just dig into their database, what's working, what's not working, what it could look like once you get your hands on it, pretty much.
That's right. Yep.
All right, guys, appreciate you as always. This was super helpful. And it's probably just a function of me being back in the nitty-gritty of like what agents are actually struggling with. And it is like literally, what would I text somebody, if I haven't kept in touch with them for 3 years since closing? Like to me,
Yeah.
that was a nugget right there, a really valuable nugget. If you have the slides for this presentation, I'll put them in the platform so when they watch this, they can go through the slides and awesome. All right, guys, good stuff. We'll talk to you soon. Be good. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Bye.